Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Accounting Alchemy Network. We are here again. I'm sure you've watched, hopefully, maybe at least one or two of our other videos on YouTube. Well, this is going to be a great one because today we are talking to a couple of individuals who've completed the 12-week Living Earth Community Action Training program, which was formerly called GCAT. Uh, anyways,
The Game Changer Action Training
Thank you. I was
previously.
like, what was that called? The Game
And
Changer.
before
Thank you.
that, it had another name, but yeah.
Yes, some amazing content that we've partnered up with the Pachamama Alliance to leverage to bring to our community to help our community of accounting professionals understand how they can take their aspirations, their dreams, their hopes, their desires for a better future into action, right? So we're going to hear from a couple of people who've gone through that program today and then open up a dialogue around how other accounting professionals can take their hopes and dreams into action, whether it's through their participation in a program like LeCat or on their own accord. But before I get into all of that, for those of you who are brand new to who we are the Accounting Alchemy Network, and we are a grassroots movement empowering accountants to transform the world. That looks like a lot of different things. We make educational content in various pillars about things like our relationship to money, how we show up in the workplace, etc. And we host lyceums like this, where we gather other accounting professionals together to talk about things that are important to them, things that are affecting their lives, whether it's in their practice and how they work with their clients, how they teach their clients how to prioritize people and planet over profit, or even how they take care of themselves and nurture their own well-being in the context of living inside of this world of making money and doing the things that we need to do or think we need to do as accounting professionals. So, I don't know, Ingrid, did I miss anything? You want to add anything extra to that before we open up the floor for introductions?
I think you covered it pretty well. The only other thing that I would like to add about the LeCat course is how much it's changed my life personally. I'm actually going through that course right now, facilitating it for the sixth time in my local area. And every single time it just really opens things up for me. But the very first time that I took that course through the Pachamama Alliance, my project was creating the Counting Alchemy Network. And it was really foundational for us in creating this movement and supporting us in developing our theory of change and bringing us together and helping us create our decentralized leadership model. Like a lot of things have come out of this course for me. And for me, the LeCat course really was kind of the one thing that makes everything else easier or unnecessary. And it wasn't about choosing a project. At that point, I was already creating the Accounting Alchemy Network, but I gained so many tools that helped me to put some rocket fuel behind the work that I was already doing in the world and what I was working to create. And this is a huge part of what has come out of that for me. And I'm just so excited that we get to share this with others and that more amazing things are coming out of it. And excited that we get to hear about some of those things today.
Yay, exactly. So we are practicing what we preach, and it's what we do here at the County Alchemy Network. So we're going to do a round of introductions and meet who's on the line, and then we'll get into the details about what this program is or was and how it shaped our participants' choices in some of the projects that they are well involved in. So let's start with you, Rebecca. Why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Yeah, who are you? And maybe answer this question. Who are you? Whatever that means to you. That's a big question, I know. And then what inspired you to get involved in the LeCat program? Like before you joined, what was that like thing that you're like, oh, I'm gonna do that. I say yes to the dress. Go for it.
My name is Rebecca Johnson. I live in upstate New York and I own a company called Black Diamond Bookkeeping, which is a small woman owned and operated boutique bookkeeping service. We mostly work with local small businesses or micro to small in the accounting world. And I think that the inspiration for getting involved with the LeCat program was not only Matthew and Ingrid, but wanting to take the opportunity to pull together some of the experiences that I had had in organizing or facilitating in a more concrete fashion with support towards an end goal and really accountability when working within the community.
Cool. Thank you, Rebecca. Jana, what about you? Who are you and why did you say yes to joining the LeCat program?
Why did I say yes to the dress? So
Mm,
I'm Jana Etienne. I'm a CPA, and I'm based in Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C. And I was in practice for a very long time, and then I spent 10 years outside of the profession, but serving mostly the profession, um, consulting, training, speaking, and now I'm starting back into practice in little baby weights. And what inspired me to join was two things. One, I had been doing a number of programs with AAN, particularly Game Changer Intensive, went through that a couple times. And I was really trying to think about, I want to do more, I want to drive change. I don't know what change I want to drive, but I want to drive change. And I could use some help in what that looks like. So really this sort of gave me, like you said, Ingrid, some tools. And even more personally, more recently, as think about launching my practice again, I really want to think about what does it look like in this practice? Like, how do I do this so that the practice as I move forward is more intentional and aligned with my values? So I can see these tools helping me there as well.
cool. Thank you. Awesome. So let's maybe recreate a little bit of what actually happened, right, in this training course for folks who have no idea what this thing is, right? And so again, I mentioned earlier, it's a 12-week program. If you Google Pachamama Alliance and go to their website, you can learn more about their organization and kind of what the sort of underpinning of their content is. And it's really important work about climate change and racial equity and taking action and being involved as activists and community members. But this particular program is a facilitated experience. We had a small group of accounting professionals that went through a set of modules, and each of these different modules contended with a different aspect of what it meant or means to be a committed community organizer, right? Ranging from things like how do you talk to people and get them informed, inspired, and enrolled in your idea, through to understanding things like, well, where does your actual project fit into the ecosystem of all the things that you could be doing? So I'd love to hear from both of you, what were some of the sort of course highlights for you, those sort of bits and pieces of information that really inspired you or informed you or maybe helped you to think differently about your work in the world, whether it's as an accounting professional or just as a human being. I'm super curious about that.
I guess that means I'll go first because
Yeah.
Rebecca's just nodding. So two things jumped out at me in terms of the tools. One was community mapping. Um, Ingrid, Matthew, y'all can describe what it is. But for me, it was a, a bit of an aha to think about how do I look actually in my local area and construct a group, a network that does not currently exist for me that ties directly to what I want to do, right? And then the second one was the structure of the conversation, the you, me, we conversation. I've had all these conversations. It feels very familiar. Many of us, especially as small business owners and entrepreneurs, have similar conversations, but and trying to build a relationship and build a rapport. But the construct of that framing for that conversation really helped me feel less conspicuous, I think, when engaging in a conversation where I feel like I have an agenda, but I don't want to walk in there acting like I just want something from them. And I also need to prepare for a conversation and understanding what is it that I'm bringing to it. And so I take for granted that I know how to do that stuff in my professional life and in my personal life, but I didn't know how to use it or to have these conversations in terms of a movement that I'd like to be part of. So community mapping and Yumiwi.
Yeah, no, those are two like critical components of doing this work. So thank you for highlighting that. Rebecca, what about you? What stood out?
I would say also Yumiwi and really drawing the parallels to how I was already using those conversations in facilitating client work and and the engagement there and the story that I then construct around the goals within our client work. And so kind of taking something that we were learning about that felt like a bit of a new foreign concept and say, oh, we're actually already applying them. And I think that for me, having studied anthropology, that really tied in of like getting to know somebody's community, their understanding of their identity around money. Or, you know, in the project that I'm working on, which is gathering LGBTQIA plus and allies in the accounting space, what are the experiences that we have that are common so that we can move forward with goals. So I think Yumi We and like reframing it as the kind of conversations that we're having every day, but as Jana said, knowing that you have an agenda and using it as a tool to facilitate moving in that direction instead of kind of saying, oh, this is who I am, who are you, right? We have some steps that we can say this is the next step in that conversation process. And then I think also the activist aptitudes and diving into right the different qualities that we see in ourselves or identify in ourselves around activism and the strengths that we may have, but also where we don't feel as comfortable and being able to find partners who might feel more comfortable in that space. I know, Jana, you've mentioned that in some of our other meetings of like, you have this strength that you didn't necessarily know that would be helpful to somebody else. And then you found that space through a Yumi conversation that said, oh, this is something that I didn't know would be a benefit to you. And here's how I can show up instead of going into the room and saying, well, these are my skills. What do you want from me? Right? Finding out what is needed and where you can fit in versus creating more work in a project by saying, I'm here, what can I do?
Thank you so much. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. Well, if it drops out, Matthew can just take over. I'm leaving off. I want to just highlight the amazing things that you each were just saying about community mapping, Yumi, We, and activist aptitudes, and just explain a little bit to our viewers what each of those things is so that we're not just leaving people behind in the conversation. Community mapping is a part of the project where we actually take a look at the work that we're trying to do and figure out who are the people and the organizations that are already involved in this work or are peripheral to this work that maybe we want to be in contact with, you know, whether we know them already, people who are already in our community, or people who maybe we want to get to know and have a conversation with, or organizations that we can leverage, which, you know, might include funders or, you know, any different sorts of things. Or it could be um, representatives or city council people. It could be business leaders, just depending on the work that we're doing, and really just making some kind of graphical representation, whether that be an image or even a spreadsheet, because hey, accountants, we love our spreadsheets, whatever works for you to put it out in front of us so we can see it in a way that is going to be useful. And then taking the people and the organizations on that map and kind of prioritizing what are the most important conversations to have first? Like, what is the most important first step? And then we use a conversation tool that we call Yumi We, which focuses on really spotlighting that person that we're wanting to connect with, because that's what a conversation is, it's connection. And focusing on them first. Here are the things that I see in you and the reasons why I'm reaching out to you and what I really appreciate about your work and kind of highlighting them and appreciating them because that opens them up to the conversation. And then coming back around to here's who I am and what my interests are in this work. And then comes around to here's what I would love for us to do about something together. And what is the we that can come out of this conversation? And there might be multiple things, but it's a way of framing up the conversation that really focuses on connection, real human connection, even developing with connection with people who maybe are on the other side of an issue from us. And how do we bridge those divides and come together on common interests instead of opposing positions? It mitigates power dynamics in a beautiful way and helps us to be human together. And then activist aptitudes, as Rebecca was saying, is a way to really kind of hone in on what are each of our strengths and also what are the things that are not so much strengths that maybe we would be better off finding somebody else to partner with us on because we can't all be good at everything. And I'm really excited that Cass has just joined us as well. Cass went through the CAT course with us too. And I will toss it back to Matthew now that I've explained those few things.
Thank you, Ingrid, for giving that context. And one other bit of context, Janai, give me 2 seconds. One other bit of context I want to give too is actually, Janai, you brought up another acronym, GCI, so Game Changer Intensive. So oftentimes for people in this community who don't know where to start, don't know what project they might want to do, we often recommend that they start with that program because that program gives you it's not 12 weeks. I think is it 8 weeks? Yeah, so it's 8 weeks, not 12. So it's a little less of a time commitment, but it's a really great program to just kind of wrap your brain around like, okay, what's actually happening in the world and how do I even relate to it? What are my own feelings and emotions about it? How do I see these things show up in my communities? How do I connect what's going on in my community to the bigger picture? How does that relate to maybe some of the more institutionalized systems that are in place? And ultimately, what can we begin to do to start to shift the landscape, right? It's not necessarily that program is not necessarily about saying, and here's what I'm going to do today. It's more of like getting you personally plugged into this bigger picture. Whereas this program is literally saying, okay, I see what's going on. I have a sense of what's going on. I know that I'm inspired now to take action and do something in my community. Here's what I think I might want to do. Now, Jana, you had your hand up. Go for it. What was
Yeah.
your thought?
It was something that you said, Ingrid, in the community mapping. Another aspect of that for me was to see people in my network that are already there a little bit differently.
Mm,
Because oftentimes you see somebody and you've sort of pegged them as this is this person, and I go to this person for X. And then you realize, but hold on, maybe they have some other relationships or connections, or they might actually be interested in participating in this or talking with me. I can learn more. And then the most important thing I left off is for me, the other participants were critical for me in this program because I walked into this program with this vague idea that I want to do more, but I didn't know what the more was. And listening to the different ideas sparked ideas for me and gave me permission because some of the other participants weren't as clear. They had an idea but their idea pivoted a couple times. So it gave me permission to be like, okay, so I don't know, and that's okay, and I'll figure it out. So I think that being involved in the community in this program is really key.
And that's a huge part of what the Accounting Alchemy Network is all about, is coming together to do this work so that we don't have to do it alone, because this is hard
mhm,
stuff that we're trying to figure out. And
mhm,
I love that LeCat is really focused on that action team model. And the
mhm,
Game Changer Intensive also used to be kind of a cohort action team kind of model. And now, fairly freshly, just a handful of months ago, is being offered on demand so that people can just do it in their own timeline through the Pachamama Alliance website. And we're
mhm,
excited to be piloting that a little bit and, still planning on pulling together action teams to go through the Game Changer Intensive as well, simply because it is so much more powerful to do it in a group of people where you can discuss the ideas. And
mhm,
also, being able to go at one's own pace definitely has its benefits.
mhm. Thank you,
And
Ingrid.
I want to welcome in Cass. And Cass,
Yeah.
Rebecca and Janai each got to do just a little bit of an introduction and what inspired them to join the LeCat class. I'm wondering if you'd like to jump in and share with us as well.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thanks. Sorry for being late, but I'm here and it's always good to see y'all. Um, and so my name's Cass, and what inspired me to join was I think I look at things, I get really big picture, and I like to go way far out. You see all the problems of the world, and then you're like, okay, but like I'm on the ground, and like, what do you do on the ground? And I have these certain skills, perhaps, or I have, these certain opportunities or people I know. But so, what does it look like to be a good player from a big picture? But like, what does that look like on the ground? Um, and I feel like, or at least in my experience, going through that helped me. It took me a while because I went in thinking I was going to do one thing and came out and it looked completely different.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think being able to take some of these big picture ideas and some of this like deep inspiration, but trying to figure out how to actually
Mm.
channel it in real life.
Mm.
And I think that's what that helped me do. And it helped me realize that, you know, some of these things that we want to do to help the world, sometimes they're a lot more simple than you think. But being able to step into them with with those um, wholehearted soul intentions is powerful. And
Mm.
sometimes this work looks more simple than
Mm.
we might think. Yeah.
Mm. So,
Thanks.
Cass, I want to stay with you for a second, and then I'm going to ask everybody the same question. So, Rebecca and Janai, you have a moment to ponder the question before you answer. And you hinted at it, but I want to kind of be clear about it, right? Um, we, in this particular program, the ultimate aim is that people leave with a project, right? A thing that they're going to do, that they've had some Yumi conversations, they've done their community mapping, right? They've figured out what their skill sets are, and they're like taking action on the thing, right? And then we have a 3 months check-in with them, and we see how everybody's doing, and with the hopes that they're, well on the way to doing their project in whatever form it's taking. And sometimes people come in with ideas. Sometimes people don't really have an idea, and it evolves. And so I want to know from each of you, what was the thing that you were coming in with in whatever form it was in? And then what did you end up with? What was the final project? And maybe speak to like the thing that shifted it for you. So if you came in with A and you left with B, then what happened that made that change for you? Or if you came in with A and you're still with A, like what was reinforced for you in being in this program that made it clear for you that A is the way for you? So yeah, let's start with you, Cass, and then we'll do Janelle and then Rebecca.
Sure. Yeah, this is a really good question. So, I'm coming in from kind of more of an accountant mindset of like, I think I first came in with some ideas of tax reform and then like a gift economy, and then this transformed into a gift economy. And then there was a part of me that was like, um, almost auditing, like, well, what parts of your life can you already do this in that you aren't quite aligned there? And so that's why I chose to um, pick the project for my house, um, living in a community house, and kind of bringing these values and these principles here, and really trying to, I guess, embody it almost on an intimate level because this is at my house, um, and feeling like that's where I needed to start. And so I thought it was going to look like some like tax reform and accounting and it ended up turning into something really intimate because I'm like, these are values and this is a way of being that I want to em embody. And I think I need to like practice and be in more so that maybe then I can kind of grow the ripple out. But the ripple needed to start, here, like with me.
I want
Yeah.
to just reflect really briefly on that, Cass, because your project of focusing on your home space, of course, is so like dear to my heart because I'm doing a similar thing with my home space and just the conversations that have come out of that. And then also getting to have conversations with other people who are doing similar work and what those Yumi Week conversations have been like. And just the Yumi Week conversation that we got to have with Liz Scott just a couple weeks ago and how amazing that was to be talking with her about her work in a similar kind of way. And what does it look like to create agreements with people that are outside of the standard profit-focused capitalist model of how do we take care of each other?
Mm.
How do we have life-affirming agreements that are equitable and effective and support people even when things are going on in our lives? And yeah, just layers and layers of those things. And also really looking deeply at the construct of property ownership,
Mm.
recognizing that here in the United States on Turtle Island, we are doing all of these things with homes and property on stolen land. And how do we bring some truth and reconciliation into those conversations and heal the injustices of the past? And how do we even just have these conversations, recognizing that they can be really challenging and triggering? And it's some big Jedi work, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So bringing those conversations into your home space with the community members who are living with you in your home and trying to develop agreements is some of the biggest work that there is to do. And I commend you. And starting with that seat at home and then being able to branch that out beyond into conversations with our clients, our colleagues, questioning the dominant paradigm of the rules that are being set forth by our society, that is huge work that
Mm.
impacts our society and thus also our environment. If we're looking at it from a climate justice perspective, recognizing how we treat people and how we treat the earth, like it all comes around full circle. So
Mm.
such a beautiful project, Cass.
Yay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Janelle, what about you? What did you come in with? What did you leave with? And what changed in the middle?
So I've been saying I didn't come in with anything. That's not completely true. So because of the GCI, one of the things that it sparked for me is wanting to be more environmentally conscious. But I wanted to be more than conscious. I wanted to really think about what is the impact that I'm making. And I don't know who said it, but it's really about maybe you, Cass, we think it's really big, but really it can be really small. And so for me, one of the things that I learned is that it could be small as in my house small. Um, so that has stuck with me through GCI. And so I come into this program, and in the back of my mind, I was thinking about empowerment and how it would have been nice if I had like a list of resources in my area. Who to go to, what are the laws, like what tools are available, like composting. Is there a composting service in my area? And if not, why not? And could I see how, anyway, so that's what it was about. It was like compilation of resources. So that's what I came in with. And then as I'm going through the program, I thought, well, that doesn't really make sense. I don't know how this would work. By the time I left, though, I realized that I could take that actual idea of empowerment. I met somebody at a local um, racial justice reconciliation program who was talking about empowerment, and it really activated something with me. And then the you, me, we idea came in because I had a skill. It's exactly what you said, Rebecca. I have a skill that can help this person. She needs me, I need her. I want to learn from her, and I can take a load off of her shoulders. And I ended up in this project. I wouldn't even say it's a project. I ended up participating with an organization and supporting an organization locally that is the spark of a movement. So I didn't have to make a movement. I just got to join one. But that's what happened for me.
Thank you, Janelle. Rebecca, what about you?
So The kernel of the project that I've been working on stemmed from attending accounting conferences and being new to the experience of that, and not knowing how best to show up in my whole self, to introduce myself with all of the parts of my life that I feel like are important for people to know when they meet me, which is not only that I work in the accounting field and that I'm a bookkeeper and that I work with micro to small businesses, but that I am queer and that I wanted a way to be able to represent that in a conversation starting way at conferences where I know that not all of the people attending are necessarily similar to me or even supportive of the way in which I live my life. And so the kind of impetus to join was to I was already involved in creating a community outside of conferences where LGBTQIA plus and allies in the accounting space could gather, but really looking for some coalescence and direction on what we could do with that besides just being a supportive community. And I think the first thing was showing up, um, bringing rainbow pins and handing them out to people, right? Which got the conversation started. But beyond the 1 or 2 or 3 day conference, how do we continue to support each other in community when we may be spread across the country in different circumstances in our business of being able to be accepted and out? And what would that look like? So it started with online community gathering. And I think that I came in wanting to know maybe what the next steps were. So instead of A to B, it might be like little a to big A. I feel like the project continued to be very similar to what I was originally intending. But for me, it was like Cass and Jana have said, like bringing it much smaller, like not just to the home, but to like, what do I have to contribute? And like, what are the aptitudes that I can work towards that can facilitate this community to be more impactful? And so that is some of what I worked on, we conversations with Matthew and Ingrid, to kind of like look at what it might mean to have to gather more direction. And Jana, I'd love to hear your.
Well, what you sparked for me was that in our industry, we tend to not think of ourselves. Like we're always outside of our bodies. We're serving the client, and we're following the rules, right? And it's not about us. And the clients that we serve, it's always like the bigger issue, the bigger picture. And I think what you reminded me of is that bringing it back to ourselves and starting with ourselves. Um, because there's this like, and I guess I'll speak for myself, and I don't know if this is true for everybody in the industry, but there's a bit of a disconnect between myself that I live here in my home and then myself that I live out there as a professional. Um, and so really bringing it back to that and starting from there, um, and having permission to do that was important.
And I think that, like, for me, having had the freedom to really decide in my practice to be able to do that, made me want to make that space possible for other people, right? Especially if you know that based on your client base and where you are and how you positioned yourself, that is not safe, then having a space that you can come into community and say the things that you would really like to say that you don't feel, safe from a business civility perspective or from a personal safety perspective, to have those conversations, right? We have, somebody who I met who would present like one would think and a white male accountant would present who happens to be gay and dresses up in drag. And that's not something that they can pair their accounting life with conversations about how excited they are to um, have this whole other identity. And so, Cass, I really like what you said about, the wholeheartedness of it is we shouldn't have to separate who we are in life and who we are professionally. And I really appreciate, Jenna, that you're taking that into consideration when you're reforming your practice of how can you show up and be yourself in the work that you're doing. And we know that there are going to be clients who challenge our values and staff members who challenge your values, and they may be values you didn't even know that you had a difference on until they come up. But having a space to be able to have those conversations and say, we do have a difference, and this is how I am showing up. And so for me, the progression was asking a little bit more of the community in terms of like, what are the things that we can do on a micro level, right, in ourselves, in our practices to move visibility forward. And for me, that is, showing up to accounting conferences, distributing rainbow and trans pins, and having those conversations, advocating for opportunities for speaking engagements that are more inclusive or gatherings that are representative. But I think that across the community that we've seen so far, it could be something as small as adding your pronouns and an explanation to your email signature, or on your organizers, if you're a tax pro, right, changing nickname to preferred name, or giving it the opportunity, and really highlighting that it doesn't have to be, right, cast your big uh, 50 million mile view, that you can say, right, there is a small change, I can be part of it. And that might be something that is internally how you're referencing, or it might be something that you feel comfortable sharing with your larger community or pushing for, whether it's locally or in your online community. So I think that's really what has helped me in this program, is like making it a less of a large project. It is big, difficult work, but it also recognizing it's like how we show up every day for ourselves, for our community members, for the people who reach out, right? You don't know where that you, me, we connection is going to come from. You meet somebody at a meeting and you're like, we have so many of these things, common goals. Like, what are the resources that we can share?
I feel like you're really speaking to integrity right now, Rebecca. Integrity. If you think about the word integrity, it shares a root with the word integer, which is a whole number. Integrity literally means wholeness. And we can't show up in integrity if we're leaving any part of ourselves behind. And so being able to show up in our whole selves, and also bringing it back to Lacat, part of that being our spiritual selves, whatever that is to each of us, whatever we believe in that's bigger than us, and how we connect with life and the planet and the environment around us and the people around us, and what those deeper, more spiritual, more meaningful connections feel like, and how that shows up, and how do we apply that to our work. And I feel like you're kind of encompassing all of those things. And I just want to reflect really briefly on both yours and Janah's projects, in that, Rebecca, as you were really delving into this work, which, there was so much going on for you with conference coming up that you were planning for, and, having a, accounting practice amidst all of these other things that we're doing, and just really working to ask yourself the big questions about pride in numbers, of your role as an organizer, and what does it look like to decentralize the leadership of this community a little bit. And it was beautiful, really, really amazing to see you kind of unfold and go through this process, and having the Yumiwi conversations. And Jana, I think I described you as like the most humble rock star at one point. because just getting to be in community with you as such an amazing DEI educator, like that I look up to so much, and that you stepped into this work not necessarily wanting to do, more of the things you had already been doing. You're like, I want to try something new and different. I really want to step into the environmental side of things. I've been doing DEI work for years. And what does it look like to figure out more about my community and the environmental side of it? And I really, really value how each of you stepped out of your comfort zones and stretched through this process. Oh, Janaz got a finger up. Yeah.
I do, because there's one important piece to that, and that is something that I shared this with you privately, but I'm saying it publicly. Um, there was a connection that you helped me make, and this is the importance of amazing facilitators. Matthew and Ingrid did an incredible job facilitating this program. And what you did, Ingrid, was helped me bridge DEI work and the empowerment idea that I had, which at the time was rooted in, uh, for me, it was about marginalized communities, is what I was thinking about, empowering them to get this information, um, and not seeing the connection. And you helped me see that whole connection. And so it all sort of fell together for me in a number of different ways, not just meeting someone spontaneously, I don't know if that's the right word, meeting somebody and having that click, but also understanding the whole through line from awareness in GCI to I want to do something in empowerment to I want something related to race to, oh wow, look where I am, and it all ties back. So that was important. And then there was something else I wanted to say, and that is the vulnerability piece. That one of the other things about this program, that it felt really good that it was okay that I didn't know. Like, I had no idea, and I didn't know, and I didn't feel stupid not knowing. Because a lot of times we are afraid to say I don't know because we don't want to feel stupid. But one of the things I learned in this program through everybody is none of us know, and we're all trying to figure it out. And we now have each other to call on outside of the program for support. So
I
wanted
want
to add
to hone in on that just a little bit more with another question for each of you. In that, amidst this 12 weeks, I mean, 12 weeks, that's like 3 months. And I think during that 3 months, there was also like, October tax deadlines and other things going on in each of our lives. And we ended up having to pause and take a 3-week break because there was just so much going on. And I want to just touch on what was it like for each of you personally to be doing this work, because I know that stepping into a course like this can feel really intimidating. And people often say, "Oh, I can't right now. I've got so much going on," which is totally valid. And at the same time, how do you make the decision to make this a priority, recognizing that it is the one thing that makes everything else easier or unnecessary, and that if we continue to put off doing the big, important change making work in our lives and in the world, then nothing's going to change. So, how do we integrate that and meet ourselves and each other where we're at with compassion and grace while still doing the work and letting it be messy? And I would love it if each of you would speak to your experience in that a little bit. I'm wondering, Cass, if maybe you want to start.
Yeah. I think for me, yeah, like it's hard. Oh, got dogs. It can be hard to carve out the time. And I guess part of that is getting creative. Like I was sitting on our calls while I was at the farmer's market. I would come set the farmer's market early. So part of that's creativity, but also another piece of it is like, I think for me, I was at the, I was at the ends of looking at everything from that, 1,000 foot perspective and feeling frustrated because I didn't know how to apply it. And so this was like, it is a little, like anytime we're working with the 3D world, sometimes it's a little stickier. Um, but for me, like I was like, we need to do this. Like we can't just keep thinking and talking. Like, what does it look like? What does the action piece look like? And what does it feel like? And I think going into what we're saying about how it's messy is there's no roadmap for any of these things that we're doing. We can look out, we can see what other people are doing, and it can inspire us. But what what we're going to be doing and what our job to do is going to be different, and our communities look different, and there's no specific roadmap, and so this does look messy, and you kind of got to try it on sometimes, and um and realize, like, for me, I was feeling frustrated because I feel like some of the stuff I was trying to do was so simple, but it was so hard because I had all this like other personal baggage that I had to get through, that made it feel a little heavier. And I had to just respect and honor that. And I guess at some point you don't really know what you don't know, or you don't know how things are going to look until you just get in there and do it. And I think that coming in with that, with a perspective of a little bit of play and a little bit of curiosity, and kind of dropping your expectations at the door of what you think it's going to look like or how fast things are going to happen, I think that was helpful. And I think I learned that really quick. And sometimes that means you have to take a 3 week break, and that's okay.
Rebecca, do you want to go next?
Sure. I think that I I recall that when the opportunity came up, as I had intended to do the um, game changer intensive in the spring, that when the opportunity came up to do the LeCat program, because we started in July, I just said, I'm just going to apply and I'm going to commit. And I didn't think about the time commitment as much at the moment that I made the decision to do it. I said, this is the moment to do it. And it definitely was very hard to set aside sufficient time. And I think one of the things we talked about in the as capacity shifted for the attendees, was what could be supportive going forward is more co-working opportunity and accountability along the way, so that we could really come, when we came together, like show up prepared. And I think that was helpful to me, like Cass was saying, that the flexibility, once we recognized that there were just too many factors for, it was a small group. So if you've got 50% of people not able to show up, that really changes the dynamic. And so that the opportunity to slow down and shift felt very supportive and expansive, to say, right, like, this isn't school. The deadline is negotiable. And because Matthew and Ingrid were flexible in that capacity, it made it possible for us to like regroup and show up instead of being burnt out and not contributing. And I don't, it's not as worth it, right? If you're coming not prepared, then you're feeling behind, which I know, Jana, right? We both mentioned, of like showing up and being like, I am not ready for this conversation, and having that flexibility was great. But it was also a really wonderful break from all of the other work that I was doing. And so having it more as a time for myself to say, this is the opportunity to step away from, the client grind on what I'm doing, or the expectations that I have in my personal life, to be like, this is, my me time. And it involved some earth connection and grounding, which are super key for me. And it's great to have put that more into practice, and that I remind myself going into meetings now to do a little bit more of. So I think that it was a spur of the moment, just like, I'm not going to look at the future burden and just say yes. And that's something that I'm taking into the new year, is really like trying to be able to say yes more and push some of those boundaries. And this was a great opportunity last year when I started LeCat to do that, to just say, you know, like there are so many reasons to say no to things all the time. How is it different if we just say yes?
Thank you. We'll do you next, Jana, and then while you're speaking, Jana, I'm going to put the next question for and closing question for you, Cass and Rebecca, in the chat, and then you can look at it afterwards, Jana. But please draw your attention to the chat. And so, Jana, why don't you share with us your thoughts on this?
I feel like there's so many of us that want to do so many things, and we're scattered all over the place. And I certainly wonder for myself, and I now know this to be true for me. I say I'm going to do all these wonderful things, but I never quite get around to doing them because I keep doing the same things I've always been doing. And
Mm,
what I've heard the saying, I think we've all heard the saying, but if it matters, it gets done, right? What matters to us is what we do, and what we're doing tells us what matters to us. Um, so the only way to really change something is to do something a little bit differently.
mm,
So it's about stepping into your values and making the time. It's like working out,
mm,
right? You got to make the time if you want to see the change. Um, and I think it's a little bit of what you said, Rebecca. It's like putting myself first. But then I thought it's more than that. It's like I'm going to take this hour. Like I committed to the hour
mm,
more than I committed to the extra time. But what I found initially, like I'm going to at least do that hour. And what I found to be true over and over in my life, and certainly here, is when you get into it, you realize this really is important to me. I really do want to do this work. And it draws you into the next week. And even if things come up, you try to stick with it. I know you all know I had some really difficult things come up, and you try to stick with it. Um, so I don't know. The question you asked, Ingrid, is like, how do you make the time? And I feel like you make time for anything else. If you say it's important and you say it matters, then you just do what you said, Rebecca. I'm going to just do this. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if you don't try, you'll never know.
thank you. All right, so last double, it's a double hitter question, but we're going to do a speed round. So the question is this. What's next with your project, right? Like, what's the next big action item, if there is anything, if you're contemplating, just give us a sense of where you're at or where you're headed, rather. And then, because it's a really important day astrologically, and we want to set our intentions and cast major spells, I want to know, like, what is your one big wish for the accounting profession? Okay, so I know those are tough hitting questions, but Cass, we'll start with you. What's next for your project, and what's your one big wish for the profession?
I want to take this community thing a little further out. And I live in a trailer park and we don't own the land. And working with my neighbors to create a co-op to own the land. And there's like some other resources out there there's a path that's been laid out. So that's what's next. My one big wish for the accounting profession is for us to be able to slow down and feel feel the numbers, feel what's happening, feel our clients, feel the things. Yeah, slow down so we can drop into our hearts.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cass. Rebecca, what about you? What's next with your project and what's your one big wish?
I would say for my project at this point to continue our monthly meetings with Pride in Numbers and to open up to invite new people to come in and share what they would like to achieve. And my one big wish for the accounting profession is that we would stop using AI with such reckless, earth destructing abandon and actually try and figure out where it is useful and helpful and not mess making garbage.
I love that. Thank you, Rebecca. Jana, same question.
So what's next for me on my project is to really start to understand more programmatically how I can get involved. One big wish for the accounting profession is a bit of the hybrid of the two. So it's um, recognizing that the accounting industry is the hearts and minds of the humans. It's not the machines, it's the humans, but connecting to those humans and not seeing the humans as a means to an end, but seeing that if we can weave together community with those humans, oh, the magic, can you imagine how well an accounting firm can function if everybody's hearts were aligned? Like, it'd be incredible. Um,
Mind blowing. Yeah,
Mind
thank you.
blowing, shockingly, right?
Shocking, even. All right. Well, I have one big wish for the accounting profession, and that is that more people join us at the Accounting Alchemy Network on the path towards becoming a regenerative accounting professional. If you don't know what that means, you can check out our website, accountingalchemy.net. We actually have a page on our website that explains what a regenerative accounting professional is. Hint, hint, if you look at it and you compare that to some of the conversations and examples that we've seen today through the work that Jana, Rebecca, and Cassie are doing, you'll see that it is a real thing. These people are practicing it out there, and you can too. So if you have any questions, drop a comment below in the YouTubes. Reach out to us, join our newsletter. That is the number one way to stay informed on what's going on. Of course, we have events like this that you can sign up for. You can join us on stage, enter into conversation. We've got a lot of amazing YouTube videos on our channel as well. So dive into those and find us, join us, connect with us. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say. Ingrid, do you have anything else you want to say before we end?
I think I'll just close with my one big wish, which is to turn the accounting profession into simply how we account for what we want to be held accountable to,
Yay.
which I would hope is more than money and profit, because if that's the only thing we're measuring, then we are heading even faster down an extractive and exploitative path. So putting our values and our deeply held beliefs first and people and planet before profit and keeping it not just sustainable, but making it regenerative.
Mm, yes, thank you, Ingrid. All right, thank you, Shana, Rebecca, Cass, for being our guests today. We appreciate you. Thank you for going through the program. Everyone else, have a fabulous day. Bye.